Does this sound familiar? It's 3:00 a.m., and once again you're making that lonely walk down the hallway, half awake, fumbling in the dark. It's not the first time tonight, and deep down you know it won't be the last. This constant interruption doesn't just steal your sleep. It robs you of your energy, your clarity, your very vitality for the day ahead. You feel the frustration rising with every trip, while your partner, of course, sleeps soundly, oblivious to your nightly struggle. And in that quiet moment, you can't help but whisper to yourself, "Why me? Is this what getting older is supposed to mean?" Many men and women resign themselves to this fate, believing that broken sleep is just the price of aging. They accept nights of exhaustion, days clouded with fatigue, and the unspoken fear of stumbling in the dark. But let me tell you something very clear, something I've dedicated my career to proving. It does not have to be this way. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott, a physician with over 20 years of experience studying the bladder and urinary system. Over the decades, I've seen thousands of patients walk into my office carrying this exact same burden, tired, discouraged, sometimes even hopeless. And time after time, I've witnessed remarkable transformations. Men in their 70s who thought their best years were behind them suddenly reclaiming their energy. Women who believed they'd never sleep through the night again, waking with renewed strength. And today, I'm not here with vague advice or generic tips. I'm here to give you a method, simple, science-based, and surprisingly overlooked, that can help you reclaim your nights. Not just how you drink water, but when. A strategy so logical, so practical, that once you hear it, you'll wonder why nobody told you sooner. But before we get into the solution, I want you to understand just how big this problem really is. Did you know that nearly 70% of adults over 60 wake up at least once a night to urinate? For many, it's 2, 3, sometimes even more. The medical name for this is nocturia, and while it may be common, let me emphasize, it is not normal. It is not an inevitable toll of age. It is, in truth, a signal, a warning, a siren in the night, and ignoring it has consequences far more serious than most people realize. Now, before we dive into the details, let me ask you something important. If you've ever found yourself walking that dark hallway at night, I want you to pause this moment and do something for yourself. Hit that like button. Why? Because it's not just a click, it's a declaration that you're ready for change. And I'll make you a promise. For every man who presses like today, I'm sending you a blessing. May your nights grow longer and steadier, filled with the kind of deep rest that makes you feel 20 years younger when morning comes. May your mornings be clear-headed, strong, and full of energy, not weighed down by exhaustion. And may your health, your independence, and your spirit remain unshaken because you've taken one small step toward reclaiming your life. So go ahead, press like, it tells me you're serious. And while you're at it, subscribe so you never miss another conversation like this. Then head to the comments and let me know, how many times a night do you usually get up? 1, 2, more. Don't be shy. This is a community, and you'll be surprised how many people are walking the same hallway as you. Stay with me, because by the end of this session, I'll share with you not just the why behind this problem, but the exact strategy my patients used to break free from this exhausting cycle. Tonight could be the first step toward the best sleep you've had in years. Let's get practical for a moment. If you're waking up several times a night, it isn't just bad luck, and it's not because you suddenly lost discipline. There are clear biological reasons why this happens more often as we get older, and once you understand them, you'll see why it's possible to turn the tide. The first reason has to do with a small but powerful hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or AD. In youth, your body produces more ADH at night, which signals the kidneys to slow down urine production while you sleep. Think of it as a night shift manager telling the factory floor to quiet down until morning. But with age, production of ADH drops. Suddenly, that factory keeps running at full capacity all night long, filling your bladder even when you'd rather be in deep rest. The second factor is bladder capacity. Over time, the bladder wall may lose some elasticity, reducing how much urine it can comfortably hold. Imagine a balloon that's been inflated too many times. It doesn't stretch like it once did. Even if the kidneys aren't working overtime, a bladder that can't hold as much will wake you sooner and more often. Then there's something almost nobody talks about: fluid redistribution. If you notice swelling in your ankles or legs during the day, that fluid doesn't disappear. Gravity simply holds it down. The moment you lie down at night, gravity stops doing its job. That fluid re-enters circulation, flows to your kidneys, and ends up in your bladder. A few hours later, you're on your feet again, shuffling to the bathroom. These three forces, less ADH, smaller bladder capacity, and fluid redistribution, combine to create a perfect storm. The tragedy is that most people accept this as destiny, shrug their shoulders, and tell themselves, well, that's aging. But here's the truth. While these changes are real, they don't have to control your nights. With the right strategy, you can work with your body, not against it. I've seen it firsthand. Patients who thought they'd never sleep through the night again suddenly reclaiming 6 or 7 hours straight just by understanding these mechanisms and applying targeted adjustments. But before we get into solutions, we need to face an uncomfortable reality. This problem doesn't just steal your sleep, it threatens your safety, your mind, and your heart. And too often, people discover that only after something bad has already happened. In our next part, I'll show you why Nocturia is far more dangerous than most realize, and why ignoring it is never an option. We call Nocturia the silent epidemic for a reason. It isn't splashed across headlines. People rarely talk about it at dinner tables or in church groups. Most men and women suffer in silence, embarrassed, or resigned to the idea that nighttime bathroom trips are just part of getting old. But when they come to see me, when the office door closes and it's just the two of us, the truth spills out. I remember Thomas, a 72-year-old grandfather who used to spend hours building intricate ships inside glass bottles. His hands were steady, his concentration sharp. But over the years, sleep loss from Nocturia made his hands tremble. He had to give up the very hobby that gave him peace. Then there was Margaret, 68, a retired teacher who loved reading late into the evening. One night, she stumbled on her way to the bathroom and fractured her hip. That accident didn't just hurt her, it stole her independence. She told me with tears in her eyes, "Doctor, I used to walk my grandkids to school. Now I can barely make it down the driveway." Stories like these are not rare. They are the hidden consequences of a condition that most people dismiss as annoying. Let's speak plainly about the dangers. First, the risk of falls. At 3:00 a.m., half asleep, your balance is unstable. A misplaced rug, a low table, even a slipper on the floor becomes an obstacle course. For an older adult, one bad fall can set off a chain reaction: broken bones, hospital stays, loss of independence. A hip fracture at 70 is often the beginning of a rapid decline. Second, the damage to cognitive health. Deep sleep isn't optional, it's the time when your brain performs housekeeping. It consolidates memories, processes emotions, and flushes away toxins built up during the day. If your sleep is chopped into pieces night after night, the cleanup never happens properly. The result? Brain fog, poor focus, forgetfulness. And over the long term, fragmented sleep raises the risk of serious neurodegenerative diseases. Many patients tell me, "Doctor, I thought I was just getting old and forgetful." Often, it's not age, it's Nocturia stealing their deep sleep. Third, the stress on your heart. Every abrupt awakening jolts the body into fight or flight mode. Stress hormones surge, blood pressure spikes, the heart rate jumps. If this happens 2, 3, 4 times a night, the cardiovascular system is repeatedly put under strain. Studies have shown a clear link between severe nocturia and increased risk of hypertension, arrhythmias, and other heart issues. Finally, the emotional toll. Chronic fatigue is a thief. It steals joy, patience, and motivation. Men who once loved morning walks with friends start skipping them. Women who looked forward to gardening or book clubs find themselves too drained to care. Fatigue isolates, breeding irritability, anxiety, and even depression. It doesn't just rob you of sleep, it robs you of yourself. That is why I call Nocturia a silent epidemic. It hides in plain sight, shrugged off as just age, while it chips away at your body, your mind, your relationships, and your independence. Now, some of you may be wondering, if it's this serious, why don't doctors do more about it? The truth is, many patients never even bring it up. They assume nothing can be done. But here's the turning point. There are solutions, practical ones, and they start with rethinking the way we approach this problem. Before I reveal what works, we have to clear the ground by exposing the mistakes that keep people stuck. In our next part, I'll break down the myths about Nocturia that sound logical but secretly make things worse. Before we talk about solutions, we need to sweep away the false beliefs that keep millions stuck in this cycle. These myths sound reasonable on the surface, but in reality they make Nocturia worse. I've heard them countless times in my office, and maybe you've believed one or two yourself. Let's break them down. Myth number 1, if I drink less water, I'll urinate less at night. It seems logical, less water in, less water out. But your body isn't that simple. And when you deprive yourself of water during the day, your urine becomes concentrated, thicker, darker, and irritating to the bladder wall. Imagine pouring lemon juice onto a scrape. That irritation triggers urgency signals even when the bladder isn't full. And what happens when you finally give in and drink a glass or two late in the afternoon? Your body, desperate to correct the imbalance, processes it quickly, often at night. The result? More bathroom trips, not fewer. Myth number 2, I've always had a small bladder. That's the problem. Blaming a small bladder is one of the most common excuses I hear. But in truth, most cases of nocturia aren't caused by the tank being too small, it's the factory running too fast. As we discussed earlier, reduced ADH production and fluid shifting from your legs are the main culprits. Even the largest bladder in the world can't keep up if your kidneys keep producing urine all night long. So when people shrug and say, that's just how I'm built, they're missing the point and missing the opportunity for change. Myth number 3, a little nightcap helps me sleep, so it can't be that bad. This one is particularly destructive. Alcohol may relax you at first, but it's a powerful diuretic. It makes you produce more urine. Worse, it suppresses the release of ADH, the very hormone you desperately need at night. That's a double blow. You're taking in liquid and you're shutting off the body's brake system at the same time. Add in the fact that alcohol fragments sleep and causes more nighttime awakenings, and it's no wonder people who swear by a glass of wine or beer end up with even worse nocturia. Here's the bottom line. These myths don't just fail, they actively keep you trapped. They create a cycle where your body becomes more irritated, your sleep more broken, and your mornings more exhausted. So let's wipe the slate clean. You now know what doesn't work, and that puts us in the perfect position to focus on what does. In our next part, I'll walk you step by step through the smart hydration strategy, the ASIM Method. A practical, science-backed system that has helped countless men and women reclaim their nights. Now that we've cleared away the myths, it's time to talk about what truly works. For years, patients told me, "Doctor, I've tried everything, cutting water, sleeping on an empty stomach, even avoiding dinner altogether, and nothing helps." That's because the old advice is flawed. The truth isn't about drinking less, it's about drinking smarter. I call this the ASIM Method, a step-by-step hydration strategy designed to work with your body, not against it. ASIM is an easy acronym: adjust, soften, stop, integrate, manage. Let's walk through it together. Step 1, adjust your hydration. The first key is to front-load your water intake. Instead of sipping randomly or guzzling late at night, shift the majority of your liquids into the first half of the day. The golden rule I give my patients is simple. Consume about 75% of your daily fluids before 4:00 p.m. How? Start your morning with 1 or 2 full glasses of water. Keep a bottle nearby and sip steadily throughout the morning, not waiting until you feel thirsty, because thirst is already a sign of mild dehydration. With lunch, enjoy another glass. By mid-afternoon, your kidneys will have hours of daylight and movement to process that liquid. You'll stay hydrated without overloading your bladder at night. Step 2. Soften the transition. From late afternoon into the evening, begin easing down. I call this the landing phase. Between 4:00 p.m. and dinner, allow yourself only small sips, just enough to keep your mouth comfortable. At dinner, drink only what you need to swallow food, not a whole glass. This gradual taper signals to your kidneys that production can slow down. Step 3. Stop in time. This is what I call the sacred zone, no liquids at all for the 2 hours before bed. If you usually turn in at 10:00 p.m., your last drop should be at 8:00 p.m. sharp. This isn't a casual suggestion, it's the most important boundary in the entire plan. Those 2 hours give your kidneys time to finish their work and send that last urine to the bladder before you lie down. Break this rule and you almost guarantee a 2:00 a.m. bathroom trip. If your mouth feels dry, rinse without swallowing, or take a tiny sip, but resist the temptation to drink more. Step 4. Integrate electrolytes. Hydration isn't just about how much water you drink, it's about how effectively your cells absorb it. Here's a simple trick. In your first glass of water each morning, add a small pinch of unrefined sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. The salt provides sodium, which helps water move into your cells, while the lemon supplies potassium. Together, they improve absorption, making hydration more efficient and reducing thirst later in the day. Step 5. Manage your dinner. What you eat at night can sabotage your bladder as much as what you drink. Avoid foods high in water content, like soups, watermelon, or cucumbers. Save those for earlier in the day. Limit spicy or acidic dishes that irritate the bladder and cut down on sugar and refined carbs that increase urine production. Steer clear of caffeine, chocolate, and carbonated sodas in the evening. Instead, build your dinner around protein and cooked vegetables. This stabilizes your blood sugar and keeps your system calm, setting the stage for restful sleep. Why this works? The ASIM method isn't magic, it's applied physiology. By shifting hydration earlier, tapering smoothly, and respecting the sacred zone, you allow your body's natural rhythms to align with your sleep schedule. Add the salt lemon boost and mindful dinner, and you've given your kidneys, bladder, and brain every chance to rest through the night. I've taught this method to hundreds of patients, and the stories are consistent. Fewer awakenings, deeper rest. Mornings that feel like mornings again. One man told me, "Doctor, it feels like my nights are mine again, not owned by my bladder." But as powerful as ASIM is, it becomes even stronger when paired with a few supporting techniques, simple physical habits that make the system almost foolproof. And that's exactly where we're headed next. The ASIM method is the engine, but every engine runs better with the right set of tires. Over the years, I've taught my patients a handful of supporting techniques that make the difference between almost sleeping through the night and actually doing it. They're simple, practical, and when paired with smart hydration, the results can be life-changing. Technique 1. Double voiding. You've probably experienced this. You use the bathroom before bed, crawl under the covers, and 20 minutes later you feel the urge again. That happens because the bladder didn't fully empty the first time. Here's the fix. When you go to the bathroom before bed, sit down even if you're a man. Sitting relaxes the pelvic floor muscles, giving the bladder a chance to empty more completely. Once you've finished, stay seated for 30 to 60 seconds, relax, then lean forward slightly and try again. More often than not, a little extra comes out. That small amount can be the difference between waking at 3 a.m. and sleeping until dawn. Technique 2, the gravity elevator. Remember the fluid that pools in your ankles and legs during the day. If you let it sit there until bedtime, it will return to circulation once you lie down, filling your bladder just hours later. Instead, get ahead of the process. 1 to 2 hours before bed while you're reading or watching TV. Elevate your legs above heart level, prop them on pillows or the couch. This encourages that fluid to move back into circulation earlier in the evening. Your kidneys process it, you eliminate it with your double voiding, and you go to bed with lighter legs and a quieter bladder. Many patients also find compression socks during the day helpful to prevent that swelling in the first place. Technique 3, salt shaker control. We used a pinch of salt in the morning for better hydration, but too much salt across the day is a disaster for nocturia. A salty diet forces your body to retain water to dilute the excess. You feel thirstier, drink more, and your kidneys work overtime to flush it out. That means more urine production right when you don't want it. Check the hidden culprits: deli meats, canned soups, packaged meals, and fast food. Cooking at home with fresh ingredients not only helps your bladder but lowers blood pressure and improves heart health. Pulling it all together: double voiding, the gravity elevator, and salt control, these aren't gimmicks. They're physiological hacks that give the ASIM method a serious boost. Together, they reduce pressure on your bladder, help your kidneys finish their work earlier, and keep your nights calmer. But I know what some of you might be thinking. Doctor, does this really work for people like me? That's why in the next part, I'm going to step aside from theory and answer your questions directly. The comments, the doubts, even the pushback from men and women just like you. Now, before I move forward, I want to pause and hear from you. Every week, I read through your comments and letters. Some are thoughtful, some skeptical, and a few make me laugh out loud. Tonight, I've chosen several to respond to directly. Question 1, Dr. Prescott, I already drink less water than a cactus. How could drinking more possibly help me sleep better? Harold from Ohio. Answer, Harold, you made me smile with that cactus line. But here's the truth, drinking too little is exactly what backfires. Concentrated urine irritates the bladder and makes it trigger false alarms. Think of your bladder like an old neighbor. If you irritate him, he bangs on the wall all night. Give him calmer conditions, and suddenly the noise stops. That's what smart hydration does, it quiets the bladder. Question 2, isn't this just what happens when you get old? I'm 75 and my father went through the same thing. Frank in Arizona. Answer, Frank, you're right that nocturia is common with age, but common isn't the same as normal. Gray hair is common, so are wrinkles, but a heart attack every year, that's not just aging, that's a medical problem. Same here. Nocturia is a signal from your body, and ignoring it, as your father may have had to, isn't something you need to accept in 2025. Question 3, Doctor. You expect me to stop drinking my evening beer? That's cruel. Anonymous comment. Answer, my friend, I wouldn't call it cruel, I'd call it mercy. That one beer shuts off your ADH and turns your kidneys into Niagara Falls at midnight. If you want restful sleep, trade that beer for a calming ritual, herbal tea early in the evening, or a short walk. Trust me, your morning self will thank you. And hey, if you insist on a drink, do it at lunch. Question 4, this sounds like too much effort. Double voiding, leg elevation, salt control, come on doc, who has time for all that? Carol from Michigan. Answer, Carol, I hear you, but let me ask you, how much time does a broken hip steal? How many hours does brain fog rob from your day? A few small habits before bed take minutes. The cost of ignoring nocturia is years. I'll take the minutes, and so should you. Question 5, Dr. Prescott. You talk like this will work for everyone. Be honest, what about people who have tried and failed? David in Texas. Answer, David, honesty is always the best policy. You're right, no single approach works for every single person. But here's the point, the ASIM method and supporting techniques tilt the odds massively in your favor. For many men and women, it's the first real relief they've had in years. For those who don't see full results, it becomes the foundation for medical treatment. Either way, you don't walk in circles anymore, you move forward. I love questions like these because they show me you're engaged, skeptical, and ready to challenge me. That's good. It means you're thinking critically about your health. And to prove this isn't just theory, let's move from questions to lived reality. In the next part, I'll share the story of one of my patients, how a simple change gave him back his nights, his mornings, and even his passion for building again. Sometimes science feels abstract, numbers, studies, theories, but what matters most to me are the lives behind those numbers. Let me tell you about Thomas, a 72-year-old grandfather with a steady hand and a love for building ships in glass bottles. For years, that delicate craft was his joy, his therapy, his way of passing time with quiet pride. But as Nocturia crept in, so did exhaustion. Night after night, broken sleep left him trembling in the mornings. The very hands that once tied tiny rigging ropes now shook too much to guide a thread through a mast. He told me, "Doctor, I feel like I've lost the best part of myself." When Thomas came to see me, we didn't talk about magic cures or quick fixes. We talked about discipline, hydrating early, respecting the sacred zone, double voiding, elevating his legs, cutting back the salt. He agreed to give the ASIM method a real try, not halfway but fully. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Thomas. His voice was stronger, steadier. "Doctor," he said, "last night I slept 7 hours straight. 7, I didn't even remember what that felt like. This morning I walked into my workshop and my hands weren't shaking. I picked up my tools again. I built for 2 hours. And when my grandson walked in, he said, 'Grandpa, you look like yourself again.'" That's why I share these stories, not to promise miracles, but to remind you that change is possible. Thomas didn't just get more sleep. He got his craft back, his energy back, his dignity back. And Margaret, the retired teacher who fractured her hip, found that by using leg elevation and hydration timing, she could walk confidently again without fearing the dark hallway. These are not isolated wins. They are proof that applying the right strategy can turn hopeless nights into hopeful mornings. Now the question is, what about you? In our next and final part, I'll give you a clear, actionable plan you can start tonight, along with one important request: to join me in building a community where no one suffers in silence again. We've covered the problem, the myths, the strategy, and the techniques. Now it's time to make it simple. Here's your action plan, the same one I give my patients in the clinic. Adjust your hydration, front-load 75% of your water before 4 p.m., soften and stop, taper off gently, and respect the 2-hour sacred zone before bed. Integrate, use that morning salt and lemon trick for better absorption. Manage, keep your dinner bladder-friendly. Support it with double voiding, elevating your legs, and salt control. If you do this, you're not just improving your nights, you're protecting your brain, your heart, your safety, and your joy. Now let's talk about you. If this message brought you value, I ask 3 things. First, hit the like button. Why? Because it tells me and the YouTube algorithm that you're ready for better nights. And for every man who presses like, I wish you this. May your nights stretch long and steady, like the peaceful sleep you knew in your youth. May your mornings be sharp, full of energy, with no trace of fog. And may your strength carry you into the day with confidence, dignity, and hope. Second, subscribe. Don't miss the next life-changing conversation we'll share here. Third, leave a comment. Tell me honestly, how many times do you get up each night? 1, 2, 3, or more? Write it down. There's no shame here, only community. When you comment, you remind someone else they are not alone. Gentlemen, you have the knowledge and the tools. The choice is yours. Start tonight. Reclaim your sleep, your mornings, and your life.